Hey, how's it going, guys? I got a double feature for you today. We're looking at two games from Scott Studios. One is The Dishwasher Vampire Smile, and the other is Charlie Murder. So Scott Studios has made a history of really interesting titles, two of which I just mentioned. The recent one they released before porting this one over was Salt and Sanctuary, which was a Dark Souls-inspired 2D brawler. It's a really cool, interesting, niche kind of game. It definitely had its inspiration on its sleeve, but it wasn't entirely original in that regard, although it was pretty well done. Now, Charlie Murder and The Dishwasher Vampire Smile, on the other hand, are really, really interesting games. They originally came out on the Xbox 360. Dishwasher Vampire Smile in particular came out in 2011 as a sequel to Dishwasher Dead Samurai, and it was very well received. So we're going to be having a look at the PC port today. Alright, so it's basically a 2D hack-and-slash action platformer, kind of like a character action game. It's got this very gritty graphic novel look to it, and it's available on Steam for $9.99. It currently has, and bear with me on this, local online multiplayer with up to one other player, cross-platform multiplayer, Steam achievements, full controller support, Steam trading cards, Steam Cloud, Steam stats, and Steam leaderboards, so it's looking pretty good. Alright, so let's head on over to the options menu. So one of the things I realized when I first booted this game up, it does have Windows, borderless, and full screen mode. Unfortunately, it seems the only way I was able to record this game with AMD's Radeon Relive was in either windowed or borderless windowed mode, which is a little odd. But anyway, so you have the options to switch between monitors, which is really nice in that you don't have to go into your operating system to do that manually. You have a lot of resolution options. You're noticing there's no graphics options. That's actually fine for a game like this. It was designed for the Xbox 360, and even then it was very, I don't want to say low fidelity, because that's kind of insulting, but let's just say it's not very graphically demanding. You can even go to 640 by 480, which is kind of insane. Oh, oops. Oh, jeez. I gotta make sure this doesn't break. Ugh. Alright, crisis thankfully averted. That is another issue I have with this game, is that when you're selecting the options here, you have to be very careful, in that if you click anywhere around here, it will default to that option. So if I just click on the arrows, it'll be fine, it won't change, but as soon as I click on the option itself, it'll change to that option that I have selected. So that's a little weird. You have Vsync on and off. The game is locked to 59 frames per second, which is a weird number. You have sound effects and background music separated, which is nice. You have vibration on or off. You have pause on lost focus, which is... honestly, I don't know what that is. I thought it was something to do with the music if you Alt-Tab out, but the music in the background still keeps playing, so maybe that's a bug. Maybe I don't know what it is, and it just is poorly explained. I have no idea. And you also have the option for blood to be black or red. Alright, so what you probably noticed by now is the game supports the mouse in the main menu. It also supports keyboard, which is really cool, but the mouse control in the game is actually really nice. You don't have the mouse cursor, but you do have access to your mouse buttons, and it makes the game a surprisingly enjoyable experience. There is one caveat, unfortunately, and that is the default controls. Now, you do have fully rewindable keys and mouse buttons, so you have separate options for them, so you can have dual binding. So what that means is that you can have one action bound to a key on your keyboard and on your mouse, which is really nice, leads for some alternate controls. But the problem I realized, as I'm screwing around the menu here and misclicking, is when I first booted up the game and I found out that U is attack. Now the game thankfully does have button prompts to let you know how to play the game properly. It's just not very good at it, in that it's very briefly flashing like what to hit across the screen, and when it shows like mouse button 4, you're like, which one is that again? I have like a 10 button mouse, which one of these is 4? So it can be a little bit annoying when you first boot it up and the key bindings are a little out of whack and the prompts are very vague in that regard, but for the most part, once you get down to it and start tweaking it, it's pretty great to play this game on a keyboard and mouse. And of course you can plug in a controller if you really dislike it. Anyway, so here are your options for mouse control, and again, these are unbound, so these are on the keyboard. You can put these on your mouse. It's really great for those MMO mices with a lot of buttons. You can pretty much have every button bound to your mouse if you want to do that, if you have the mouse for it. But yeah, overall, pretty solid options menu. Yeah, it is missing the graphics options, but for a game like this, it doesn't really need it. Alright, let's actually get into the game now. Multiplayer is a little finicky in that you really don't have any server options or anything like that. It looks like it's peer-to-peer, and you just kind of, click this, and you wait for someone to join. You can invite friends, which is nice, but I don't know if I'm stuck in limbo right here or what. So maybe I just have to wait a little longer, but ain't nobody got time for that. but it's cool that they at least included it. So you move around with the W, A, S, and D keys. Now, by default, once again, the controls are a little bit borked. If you want to get into your in-game menu, you have to hit Enter. I've bounded it over to Tab. If you want to use the game options menu, you have to hit Enter. I've bound it to Escape. And of course, I've rebound the left click, so it's now the key U, which is attack. So that's cool. You also have your heavy attack on your right mouse button. And the game controls solidly. Once again, it's really nice. It's got this, once again, really weird comic book art style. It seems low budget, but at the same time, it's very high fidelity. There's just something about it, and it's incredibly satisfying to hit dudes. There's a really interesting combo system. You'd think for a game like this, it would be a bit repetitive, but it's actually a lot of fun. Although I will say that repetition and fun, they sometimes can go hand in hand. Monster Hunter is an example. You do a lot of grinding in that game, but the combat itself is a lot of fun, so you don't really get bored. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the Dishwasher, Vampire Smile. Let's move on over to Charlie Murder. Alright, so here we have Charlie Murder. This was originally released back in 2013 on the Xbox 360 as part of the Summer of Arcade promotion. And I've actually been looking forward to playing it since then. 4 whole years I've been waiting for a PC port, and now it's finally here. And it's a pretty decent one at that. It's not as good as Vampire, despite it being very similar. The problem is that some of the options that carry over from Vampire, some of the issues, are kind of blown up over here. So let's go into the options menu. So you have this weird menu going on here. I was actually going to talk about the monitor, but I just can't really ignore this thing. Come on, guys. You can fit everything on one screen. It's a little annoying. I don't know if you stylized that intentionally, but stop it. Anyway. So you have all the resolution options. You have the same bug with borderless windowed mode, full screen, and regular windowed mode in that if you switch from full screen, it can screw up your recording, and you have to do this video again for the 6th time because it just breaks like that. I'm not mad. Anyway, so yeah, the recording process for these games has been a little bit finicky to say the least. But anyway, going over to controls really quick. That's not controls. There's controls. There we go. Anyway, so you do have the options to rebind mouse and keyboard controls, which is nice. But the problem here is that there's a lot more controls involved this time around. So you have an issue where it's less playable with a keyboard and mouse than Vampire Smile is. It's still playable for the brawling segments alone, and they're still very satisfying. The problem is when you have to whip out your phone to do various tasks. You have these default bindings, D2, D3, D4. What is this? Let's just do arrow keys. And the problem here is you need to use this phone to snap pictures of QR codes in the background, and sometimes you're moving a cursor around, and it's designed for an analog stick, not for digital inputs, and you cannot bind these movements to the mouse. Like I said, you do have mouse control in the game for both games, but you don't have the cursor, so that's a bit of a problem. Alright, so let's get into a game here. So you have 4-player co-op. Online works the same as Vampire Smile does. You can still invite people to your game, which is cool. I don't have anybody to test this with because I have no friends. But anyway, so unlike Vampire, it's more of a brawler than a character action game. It's a side-scroller too. It's kind of like Castle Crashers meets Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. You can punch people, as you can see here, which is very, very satisfying. So I'm using the E key as well as the left and right mouse buttons, although I believe the left mouse button and E are the same. The tutorial, once again, well, lack thereof, I should say, it's just an issue where they don't display a lot of prompts on screen. In fact, at the beginning of the game, it shows this altar in the background, and it has Xbox 360 prompts printed on. So the only time you're really going to get prompts are below the character's feet when they pop up when they feel like it. And they still really don't explain what they do. You have to test around a bit with them. And once again, it's just not very viable to play with a keyboard, if I can say words today. You're better off just using a mouse, or excuse me, a gamepad. But it is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of unique ideas. You can pick up hats in the game for stats. You can use a phone to scan QR codes for extra points. You also have a tattoo system, which gives you more special abilities. It's a really interesting game. It's got that low fidelity aspect to it once again, but it's stylized in a way where it doesn't really matter. It feels so bizarre just looking at it, but it's really in your face with its art style. And the music's really, really good. And stuff like that happens. So, which one should you buy? Well, I think Vampire Smile is the better PC port. This game also has issues later on when you're doing its variety stages, where sometimes you're doing basically a shooting gallery, and you pretty much have to use a cursor, so you pretty much have to switch to gamepad at that point. But this game is also fun in and of itself, and it's a lot more accessible than Vampire is once you get past the control barrier. But Vampire is also 2 players, so if you're down for some character action co-op, give that game a shot. But this game is a lot more accessible. Doesn't mean it's watered down or anything like that, it's just fun for different reasons. And hitting stuff in both games is, once again, very satisfying. A little bit repetitive, of course, but very, very satisfying. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out.